Hi guys, this is Steve here. Welcome to my channel. I've had my channel for a while, but I haven't really had the time to make any videos because I've just been too busy trading and testing different kind of indicators. But today I'm going to show you something very special. I'm going to show you how I use a trailing stop on Bitmex. The trailing stop is really useful because if you use it effectively, you can, and I have done this quite a few times. It did take me a while to figure out sort of the best way to do this and to get my entry and exit right. But what it can do is it can be really useful for catching pumps and dumps. So when I've been testing some of these things, I just use a tiny little micro account. So I'm going to show you. I've got an entry right here. You see what's going on here in my tiny little account, where I play around with new strategies. See, I've got a small long entry. Let's see, I got in here just now. And I've got trailing stop here of minus 25. So what that means is if this price keeps on going up and up and up, it will exit with a market stop order at the point that it suddenly reverses by 25. And you see, this is really useful for catching a pump like this, because if you look at the top of the wick here, so let's have a look at the distance here. So that's 3493 to here, 3443. I didn't take this trade actually, because I was in the middle of doing something else. I was actually installing some Adobe apps, but I've taken quite a few of these trades before, where I put a trailing of say minus 25, minus 30. I mean, around about that figure seems to be pretty good for a number of moves. I mean, obviously it's been really volatile recently, because Bitcoin's just been crashing like anything. So if you sort of catch it, and I'll explain on a separate video of some of my methods in which I'm using to watch trends and reversals. But you should look at this spike here. So if I had entered long, which if I was watching the chart at the time, I probably would have around here. And a trailing of minus 25 or even minus 30, it would have sold probably around here or here. Okay, it did go a little bit further up, but not too much further. So yeah, on a really steep move, if this trend, say if BTC or whatever is dumping really hard, sometimes I'll put the trailing a little bit higher, say to minus 45 or minus 50, and what that does is, if you do that, it can really sort of trail and move all the way down. So I did this on the I think it was the second week of let's go and have a look at the chart of some of the pumps and dumps I call almost perfect. This is the day that BTC started recovering after that huge dump the few days before. So what I did here is I actually had a long entry around about here somewhere, and I set the trailing stop to about minus 45, I think. And what it did was it caught it down there and exited somewhere here. You see here, this is the high of this is 4751. So it must have exited. Exited around here, and then I re-entered here, and I put another trailing stop here, and then it must have exited around, so it must have exited at the top of this candle here, and then I waited for a bit, and I put a short here. See, if you're going to do a trailing stop on a short, you've actually got to do it the other way round, because on a long trailing stop you've got to put a minus number in, whereas on a short trailing stop you've got to put a positive number in, because what you're doing is you're setting the stop so that if it rises by X amount, then you buy out your short position. So what I did was I had a short in there. I think I exited this one manually somewhere around here. Then I was waiting for it to see what happened next, and I put a short in here. And you see here, this was a huge crash, and I put a short, and then I put a trail of about 50 positive, and actually it exited right near the bottom. And as soon as I saw this candle here, I put a long in, and I caught this pump all the way up there, and I put another trailing stop in. So I basically sort of got these, you know, these 5 moves almost perfectly. And the trailing stop was so useful in doing that. Alright, so let me give you an example of how you would set a trading stop differently on a long or a short order. So here right now I've got a long position. So on a long position you need to set the trail value to a negative, so i.e. at the point where it suddenly dropped by minus 30, then it will set a market order to sell. If this position was a short, however, I would put a positive number, and the reason why is because you're buying out that position to get you out of the short position. So obviously this is a long position, so this is what I'm going to do, and see, here you go. I mean, it's as you can see, it will these numbers will move up and down according to the price. So yeah, I hope that was useful. Right guys, a quick word about using different types of stop losses. So I'm sure those of you who use Bitmex, or maybe you haven't used Bitmex yet, but there is something that I've seen that happens quite frequently during volatility, which is server overload. And when that happens, you can't get an order filled. And I've had stop losses being missed before when I set a stop limit. I was lucky I didn't get liquidated in one of them. So what I do is, if you have a trailing stop, that doesn't matter so much actually, because trailing stop can do 2 things. The first thing is that if it pumps, say if you're in a long and it pumps, say $150, and then at the end of that $150 pump, it moves down by minus 30 or whatever, then it will sell at that level. So you made a decent profit. On the other hand, if it doesn't go up at all, or if it goes up and only slightly, but then it's still then it goes down, it goes against you, then this will act as a stop loss as well. So so a trailing stop can be pretty useful in all types of situations. Alright guys, so when you set a stop, there's one last thing. So you'll notice that there's a couple of options here. So there's trigger, action, and close on trigger. So what this means is what is the price that you're going to choose to base the stop on. I would say that if you're going to use a trailing stop, I would probably use the last price, because the last price is the actual price that's been traded. So if you want to catch some of these wicks and take advantage of them, I would use last price. I mean, some people say that if you're going to use a normal stop, like a stock market, you'd be better off using mark price, because the mark price, it does move a little slower, it's less volatile, but the thing is, the mark price, it does lag a little bit. So if you're going to use a really fast move like a trailing stop, I would not use mark price, I'd use last price. I mean, you're more than welcome to set a second stop, either a stop market or a stop limit with a mark price as well, just to be safe. You can just play around with it and see what works best for you. But as I said, if you can use the trading stop, I tend to use last price. I've never used the mark price for the trading stop. And the close on trigger. So what this does is, if you untick it, and if your stop, so say if you wanted to enter a trade in the opposite direction, you would untick this, and you would actually increase the quantity value here. So you see your stop could trigger an order in the other direction. Also, to understand the close on trigger function, having it ticked versus not ticked, there are a couple of good posts on Reddit that I found. So this is one of them. So this is basically saying that close on trigger, make sure that it closes any open positions and doesn't add to them in the other direction. So say if you're long with 100 contracts and you have an open order for another 50 that hasn't already been hit, where they were long 100 contracts and there was another 50 that hadn't been filled, and if you had close on trigger off and you had a sell of 150 as a stop loss, that would have entered you in the other direction with 50 contracts. Now there's probably some circumstances where if you untick close on trigger, it can be useful actually. It's something that I'm going to be playing around with a little bit. Yep, so if you have the close on trigger box, it doesn't affect any other open orders. So yeah, so I hope that was useful. Alright guys, just a final few words. So this channel isn't that new, but I haven't really made a lot of content for it before. What I will be doing is making a lot more videos over the coming weeks and months, because there's a lot of knowledge that I've got, and there's quite a few things that I'm going to share completely for free. I also have a TradingView account where I've been publishing scripts. I've only published a couple of things, and what I will be doing is publishing some modifications of some well-known or some really good indicators, and I'll be explaining how I use them. I'll also be explaining how I actually identified some of these tops and bottoms, because for the last few weeks I've been practicing on low time frames using my micro account. Because it was so volatile, I just thought that this is a war zone. How on earth do you trade this kind of thing? And I have pretty much identified a method to trade. I mean, you can see my setup here. I mean, it looks pretty messy. But in a subsequent video, I will explain to you sort of some of the key components. I mean, we've got the Bollinger Bands. We've got something that has been made by Lazy Bear, which is CCI coded on balance volume. Now, this is a very, very useful tool because this can really help you predict the trend of something, or it can help you stay in a position which, if it's going up, it'll help you define the pullbacks, and when it's dumping, it can help you avoid a falling knife. I use the Ichimoku. This is actually a special Ichimoku which has been made by my friend Squiggle. I'll put a link to his channel below the video here as well. Let me just hide some of the stuff here. I mean, I don't think he's published this yet. But this Ichimoku is actually something very special called Ichimoku Thunder and Lightning. I told him about this because there's a book by a Japanese trader called Ichimoku Thunder and Lightning, and this is basically where instead of the lines, you have the Kumo here, and you've got like a sort of a lightning thunder strike, which is fast moving. So maybe we'll do a joint video on that another time. I mean, this is just the this is an alternate stock RSI, and this is an alternate MACD. I've also got a modified version of Chris Moody's MACD, which I will publish some point soon when I've got the time. And this is an ADX script that I modified again with the help of Squiggles. So this is really, really useful because what I've got here is it can show the crosses where the lines, the DI plus and DI minus lines cross each other. And it also has this really useful feature which shows the background, the constant color according to the trend. So you could use you could take most of your moves based on that alone and the line. I mean, I think a lot of people may not know how to use ADX, so I'll probably do a separate video on that as well. Now this one here, this is a really, really interesting indicator. This is again, this is made by Chris Moody. If you're watching this, Chris, say hi. I've sent you a message. He's a very difficult guy to get hold of. But yeah, I mean, this is basically the Wall Street volatility fear index, so you get all these bars light up when there's this huge down volatility. And what I've done is I didn't actually modify his script as such, but what I did was I found some alternate settings for it, which I can explain at a later date, which because there's a switch as well in which you can flick it on and make the candles glow molten, and it can also show you candles that where it's kind of cooling down. You see these green bars here, you see the blue bar here. In some circumstances these can be good entries, depending on the situation. So yeah, at a later date I will be going through these on different videos, and also some different strategies on Bitmex and Deribit, and also maybe some reviews and some explanations of the nuances and ins and outs of some of these exchanges. I want to provide to you information with quality and which will really help you. So yeah, so please subscribe to the channel, and if you don't have a account with Bitmex or Deribit already, there's a link below. If you do sign up and to make a reasonable deposit and start trading, please do get in touch, because I can give you a little bit more free advice. Okay, so I'm just going to finish off with a summary of everything that we've gone through on this video. So when you're in a long position, the trailing stop must have a negative value, e.g. -50. If you're in a short position, the trailing stop must have a positive value. For a longer sweeping move and trading on candles of at least 60 minutes, I would use a higher stop size, e.g. 50, 60 or more. That's just from personal experience. You may want to play around with it and see what number you might be able to come up with, but I've found from personal experience that works. For scalping, if you're going to be trading on shorter time frames, you may want to use a smaller size, e.g. 25, 30-ish. Again, none of these are scientific numbers. I would encourage you to play around with it a little bit, and maybe observe the charts on some pure candles and see what the price variation is for when something peaks and starts to turn the other direction, or it bottoms out and it starts to go the other direction. And trailing stop also acts as a stop market, so if it doesn't go in your favor, it will still fire. And finally, use a last price, as this will enable you to catch and exploit the top or a bottom of a wick. If you set the stop based on mark price or index price, that will lag. Alright guys, so I'm going to give you a very special bonus. If any of you decides to create another account, or maybe you don't have an account already for Bitmex, using my link, which is at the bottom of this video, I will send you a special guide that explains my Heiken Ashi setup, and it's got some information about how I use ADX, which is the average directional index indicator. I'll send you the indicator as well, actually. The Williams Fix. So Chris Moody made this brilliant indicator, which is based on the Fix Wall Street Fear Index, and I played around with it and I came up with some alternative settings. So the guide that I have explains how I use that. I'll probably go through some of this in a subsequent video anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's a guide that I have actually sent coaching clients in a previous program. I'm developing a Discord group. At the moment it's not public because I'm trying to put together some of the old information I had in a structured and ordered way. So there's just a handful of people in it. People that I know, or people that I've coached already, or one or two others. There's still a few people that I need to add into it. Okay, so one last thing before we go. So yeah, I do actually have a website. Depending when you're watching this, the website may or may not be back online again, or maybe you're watching this months or years in the future and it's already back online and built into a beautiful machine. But I've only just recently renewed the domain, so the servers were offline for a little while. I haven't really updated it much. I haven't really built much around it. But I do plan in the long term to sort of put a lot of decent content on there, and have a lot of different articles, links to some of the indicators that I've edited and adapted on TradingView, and general sort of training, free advice, probably be a paid section at one point. And I guess this is my logo for the moment. You may recognize what that is. Basically that is an orca, also known as the killer whale. I picked that because obviously, there's a lot of talk of whales in the crypto world, and I thought, well, why don't we have a whale which is a killer whale? Because actually it's a dolphin, but it actually kills whales and sharks. So in my mind, it's a very beautiful creature. It's also a good guy, even though it's pretty mean. And they can take out white sharks and all kinds of other things. They're known as apex predators. Nobody can beat them in the sea, basically. So don't forget to subscribe and share it, etc., etc. And there will be a lot more content coming out in the near future. Okay, so one last thing before I go. I need to give a very special thanks and a shout out to my friend Nigel, also known as Squiggles. He has his own channel and platform on TradingView, and he's one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in PineScript, and he's helped me out so much. There's going to be a few videos in the future where I demonstrate some of the stuff that he's helped me build, and he's also got some absolutely fantastic indicators that he's created himself. So I've put a link to his channel and his TradingView profile below in case you want to have a look at what he's done and want to get in touch with him. So as I said, in the future, there's going to be things that I'm going to be demonstrating that he's helped me build. Such as this very special Ichimoku, which I spent quite a few weeks on. And without his knowledge, this is when I was still learning PineScript, I would not have been able to put it together. And there's going to be an ADX and DI script, a special MACD, and a few other things as well. I will catch you soon then. I'll see you soon then. Thanks, bye.